Hey, let's talk about your second song. This is Robson and Jerome, I Believe. Why?
Well, basically, I was working for Mike Stock and Matt Aitken at the time, and I ended up singing on the singles of Robson and Jerome. Not many people know this.
Instead of them?
Well, you know, you decide what you want to hear. But basically, there were two Robson and Jeromes, because the album was made, the singles were made by Stock and Aitken, and the album was made by Nigel Wright, who is now the musical director of things like X Factor and American Idol. And of course, they had another two Robson and Jerome. So myself and another guy who was a 70s pop star he also did the accounts for Stock and Aitken, and we were whipped down to sing Unchained Melody originally because we knew it. End of, really. And then Simon Cowell loved it, and then, you know, suddenly Robson and Jerome found some voices, and then that became a number one. And then we did, you know, Up on the Roof, I Believe. And I like this one because I remember the choir in there, and it was a really hot day, a bit like today, and the woman wolfed my biscuits, and I never saw the end of them. And I thought, right, eventually, you know, that we'll make some money out of this. I'm still waiting, Simon, whenever you're ready.
It's Neil Sean. This is his second selection, I Believe. Tell you what, it doesn't get much more dramatic to end a song, does it, than that? We're talking to Neil Sean. We're one-on-one. We're in conversation here on BBC Radio Leeds. We've been talking about some big names already. You've dropped the Simon Cowell on us. Tell me about Simon. What's your relationship with him?
Well, then again, I was really lucky. I ended up working for Pete Waterman and Mike Stock and Matt Aitken, which were the Hit Factory at the time, with Kylie, Jason, all that. But let me tell you, I had to create that job. I literally rang up. I mean, people laugh when you say this now, Seth, but it's true. I rang up from the corner of Borough High Street in London and sort of made out I got an interview or a meeting with them, which I hadn't. I was just desperate. I got no money, no job, nothing, and I thought, well, not doing anything on a Friday, so I popped round and sort of convinced Mike and Matt that, you know, I could do some PR really for them. And I was really lucky because I don't know how they knew this, but on the day before I'd been in the newspaper and they said, oh, this bloke can do different voices, like Matt Monroe and all this. So then they auditioned me literally that day, and then on the Monday gave me this job. And how I became sort of friendly with Simon was that he was working on all these projects that we sang on, like Gladiators, Zig and Zag, Heartbeat People. I mean, we made records with people that you never saw, like Charlie from Casualty. We did The Devil Went Down to George with him, but then I don't know whether he got a condition from working in Casualty, but we never put it out. And there were just loads of... It was endless people, you know. Will Mellor would turn up one day. You never quite knew who you were working with or who you were going to be singing for. Do
you feel bad about that? I mean, you kind of laugh about it now, but, you know, essentially... somebody else is pretending to be you're pretending to be someone else.
No, there were elements of their voice on there, and it wasn't a new thing. You know, this had gone on, you know, really since the 50s. But I think what the way that they called it was, say in the case of, say, somebody like John Alford, who was in London's Burning, he got £50,000 up front to record an album, which was not a bad fee in 1996 or something like that. And but you know, he'd never really sung. But they believed he was going to be a pop star. So I would record the album in full of all these songs, and then he would learn, you know, that phrasing or whatever, or the best he could. The bits he couldn't make, they phased in. And it was, you know, one of those things where it's like every job, when you're in it, what can you say? Because you've got to earn a living, and you never actually knew. Sometimes I didn't know, because Mike and Matt wrote very quickly. I remember being in the Cumberland Hotel one day, and we'd recorded a song, and the DJ from Capitol said, "This is a power sound of Stock Aitken Waterman, this is," and I thought, oh, we did that on Friday. And it was that quick. This was like on the Tuesday.
The turnaround. And that just doesn't happen in record making these days. If you manage to get a record out in 3 months, then people are excited about it. Yeah,
and also I like the way that they spent like 2 days on a single, maybe 8 days on an album with Jason Donovan. That would be done in a week, and then that would be multi-platinum in maybe 32 countries. So it was phenomenal. So I was very lucky.
Seems like good business, really, doesn't it?
When you look at it now, but you know, as you probably, you know, when you're younger, you don't necessarily see how talented these people were, because, you know, Mike would go downstairs and write a song and sketchily give you some, you know, sort of lyrics. Like I'm the only person ever to record the theme tune to Coronation Street. Street, and this was for a DVD, you know, when they did those spin-offs of VHS in those days, and it was called Sing Me a Memory. It is on YouTube if you want to find it, by the way. And basically, what happened was it was going to be for Michael Ball or Cliff Richard, and I had to take it to the composer's widow, and she said, no, I like this guy. And I thought, you know, probably like you would, if I go back, they'll think I've sold myself.
Yeah.
You know? So you're like, so I went back and they said, no, you know, it's got to be this other person. And then they fell out with the people of Coronation Street. The whole project fell apart. You know, it was going to have Tracy Shaw on there, who was there at the time. So there were lots of things that nearly made it that didn't quite, that, you know, I think you'll find the book interesting because of that, definitely.
It's a funny business, the music business.
Cruel.
Do you like it now? Is it a business that you can enjoy?
Age is a wonderful thing. When you look back at it as a person, I think, you only look back at the bits that you remember with affection. Simon Cowell, to me, you know, people like Mike and Matt and stuff, funnily enough, I just interviewed Simon for Access Hollywood in LA, and he arrived in this wonderful car. I came in this awful cab. You know, a warm day like today, they think you're smothered because you're boiling. He had somebody who literally was employed to open doors for him. So this woman opened every single door that he went through, including the gents, right? And as he came out, I'm sort of stood against this wall, and I said, you know, things have changed, haven't they, Simon?
Was he all right with you?
He's a lovely man, actually, very polite, very down to earth. I've got to tell you a bit of inside secret, actually. He is very worried about, you know, X Factor in America, because a lot is riding on this, you know. You can hype it up as much as you want. The Americans, if things don't work, they cut you. And I've been lucky with them for some reason. They seem to like me. But, you know, I think Simon really is worried because, of course, he's got a problem with things something like American Idol, you know, which we did. Then again, we did a behind-the-scenes tour of American Idol, and they got me on as a guest singer. So, you know, that connection gets you further. It is all about, like you rightly said, talking to people and connecting as much as you can.
Kylie. Telltale signs.
Kylie Minogue, I've liked her for years. She's just a fantastic pop star. You know, one interesting thing, you probably don't know anything about Kylie that you think you know. You know, you kind of think, I know everything about that girl. You don't. This particular song was written by Mike and Matt. I think it's a really good 50s pastiche of Doris Day type thing. And I like it even more because I'm on it. So.
Okay, as good a reason as any. We're talking to Neil Sean as BBC Radio Leeds. We just heard from Kylie.
Yes.
Can she sing?
Oh, yeah.
Proper singer?
Yeah. I mean, a pop singer. You know, there's a big difference between being a pop singer and being an opera singer. Or you know, we recently, should I say, interviewed Wyn Evans, you know, the guy who's the Go Compare guy. And he was just singing around our studio in Westminster. And you just come back and think, wow. That's impressive. And, you know, then you dread this, don't you? Because somebody said, oh, you know, Neil sings. You think, not now. Move on.
So,
you know, people like Alfie Bow and stuff, we get those in the studio. And, you know, you're really impressed by people like that. I think pop stars, knowing the trickery that is available to them, and, you know, auto-tuning and stuff. I mean, you know, Cheryl Cole, very pretty girl, lovely smile, but can't sing. You know, and to me, you look at those people and think, well, they've made a lot of money from just being very good looking, and why not? You know, it's gone on for years, but no, they don't really impress me.
How did you end up in Hollywood? So you've talked about this.
Murfield to Hollywood.
Yeah, you ended up down in London. You ended up working with Stock Aitken and Waterman and doing all of that stuff down there. How do you make the massive leap from doing a bit of PR for them, doing a bit of singing in the studio, to all of a sudden working for big major networks in North America? Well,
I tell you, it's an interesting story. Again, it's all about connecting. When I was working for Stock Aitken Waterman, they needed somebody to plug the records on TV, and they looked around the room and they said, "Look, you're a loud gob. Why don't you go and do it one day?" And so I ended up working on a show in London with Fern Britton and the lovely late Karen Keating, and it was like going on, you know, once a week. We got this single, that sort of stuff, and then that evolved into radio, and that evolved then into writing like the Metro Green Room and stuff like that. You know, so everything evolved from that. I was working for Sky News for 10 years, and it sounds so pretentious to say this, but you saw these people in the building, possibly not the hottest people now to talk about, but James Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch, and I would hound them, how could I get to Fox News or whatever? And Rupert said to me one day, just tell this person that, Rupert says, and I thought, well, it's all very well, But once I clipped the picture with me and Rupert, I was on a plane that virtually 2 days later, and then I was in I think it was the 44th floor of News Corps building, and the guy said, we'd like to offer you this entertainment role, and it's just really about knowing who you are. But I think people like Murdoch and people like that, they liked me because of our blunt northernness. We're quite blunt, I think, and we just say, well, how can I get that?
And they tell you and you go and do it.
And you just go and do it,